Let's return you now to our main story this afternoon. ActionSA says the DA is shifting the blame as far as the collapse of its coalition arrangement in the Joburg Metro is concerned. You may recall on Friday, a motion of no confidence ended the mayorship of Dr. Mpopalatse from the DA, and ActionSA, which has been part of that DA coalition, has said that what happened in Johannesburg was that the DA was simply not willing to compromise on who should become Speaker after Vasco da Gama was ousted in early September, also through a vote of no confidence. Let's speak about these latest developments now. We're joined by political analyst Professor Dirk Kotze. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome back to Daytime Update. In fact, so this drama over the running of Johannesburg has turned into a bit of a DA versus ActionSA episode, and I wonder how much of it has to do with the hangover from when Herman Mashaba, who was then a DA mayor, cut ties with the party to form ActionSA.
Yes, I think that is very much the context within which this is taking place, and the fact that ActionSA wants to present their case as they did today, by saying that it was because of intransigence of the DA, and specifically, and that came out during this press briefing, that it wasn't the Johannesburg leadership of the DA, but actually the national leadership or the federal leadership in Cape Town, and that it was about the fact that they didn't want to negotiate a more of a power-sharing arrangement with respect to the Speaker, as it has been done actually in Tshwane already.
And the issue of national leadership running the negotiations for these coalition arrangements has been controversial, not just in Johannesburg, but elsewhere in the past. I wonder how effective it is, how sound it is, when you consider the accusation that those at national level sometimes don't understand the metro by metro or province by province dynamics.
Yes, that is indeed a problem, and I think this possibly has led to some of the complications that we've seen in other parts of the country, also smaller places, like, for example, in the Karoo where there were negotiations, or in the Western Cape in some of the smaller local authorities, because most of the attention is only most of the time given to the metros. But there's in total 72 coalition governments in South Africa at the moment, and many of them have their own dynamics, and I don't think the national leadership is always as much informed about it as it should be. But unfortunately, some of the parties, and that includes the ANC and the EFF especially, they insisted on negotiating at the national level. They wanted to have actually a national agreement. At the moment, in the case of these metros, there is a national agreement, but there's also a metro-specific agreement. And I think what we are seeing here is the agreement for Johannesburg specifically referred to the position of the Speaker, which differs now from the position, as I said, in Tshwane, where the Speaker's position, where Cope is occupying the position of Speaker. So there are differences, but the national agreement very often creates a type of a straitjacket that makes it very difficult for the local leadership to be able to adjust to their conditions.
But I want to go back to the issue then of ActionSA and versus the DA, because one thing ActionSA was clear about going up to the 2021 local government elections was that it was willing to work with anyone but the ANC. And how strong a foundation is that, where what unites parties in the main may not necessarily be ideology, policy, but rather disdain for another option?
Yes, that is not necessarily a very strong long-term binding force within a coalition, but sometimes it is. But it's not necessarily what they share is, but rather what they are combined against, what brings them together. And we've seen it in other contexts, even in other parts of the world also, that ultimately, but that is in the end not a binding or a glue that will keep the coalition together, especially when there's crisis situations. And I think we have seen that in the period since 2016 during that term, and we are seeing that now again. And it is especially for smaller parties. Now, what we are seeing is that the bigger parties within the coalitions, like the ActionSA, IFP, and the DA, they are less prone to this. But the real small parties, like, for example, the Patriotic Alliance, like COPE, like some of the others, they are the ones who sometimes are pushed into different directions because their vested interest in the coalition is much less because they have less sort of prominent positions in it. And that, unfortunately, at this stage, very much determine loyalty to the coalitions, which are the positions that these parties occupy in the coalition.
So just on ActionSA, then, a lot of people who would have voted ActionSA in 2021, some of them would have come from the Democratic Alliance, having followed Herman Mashaba when he was a DA mayor, and they were dissatisfied with the issues that he raised during his resignation from the party. Would some of them not now say to the leadership, well, we told you so about the DA, when they listened to Michael Beaumont today saying, well, the DA basically was too greedy and wanted a winner-takes-all scenario in the coalition arrangement?
Yes, I think it is likely that there will be some people who will be critical of ActionSA because of this, because they presented themselves today as quite loyal, as a coalition partner of the DA. And it was because of unreasonable positions taken by as I said, the national leadership of the DA that they were in this position. But they claim that right to the end they still voted for the coalition candidates. So in that sense, I think what they are doing is this event of today was very much in order to speak to the South African public, in order to say this is not because of us, because we didn't keep to the agreement of the coalition formation, but it is because of positions taken by the DA that is unreasonable. But then I think what they did pay a lot of attention to is what has happened in terms of service delivery. And I think this is the tack that they will follow in future, to say, while we were part of this coalition, we already started to present results. And what they also are saying now is that the budget of Johannesburg Metro until July next year is actually our budget.
Right.
So we will make sure that we are a constructive coalition in order for it to be implemented.
Has the DA, though, in what you've heard so far from the various explanations, including the culmination and the big briefing by the party's national leader, John Steenhuisen, at the end of last week, has the DA given an honest reflection or introspection as far as its role in the collapse of the coalition in Johannesburg is concerned?
I don't think they have done that. And they were actually, should not have been a surprise for them. There were indicators that this will be an issue. The first is that they acknowledged it in Tshwane, and they've changed it without any vote or any external pressure. And on the basis of the example of Tshwane, they were supposed to do it in Johannesburg also. I happen to be involved in a dialogue with the Johannesburg mayor in which I raised this point and why they are not doing it. And there was just not a clear-cut answer for that. So it means that Johannesburg was very much aware that this is something which is going to become a complication in the coalition. But they have simply not acted on it.
Professor Dirk Kotze, a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you, sir.